Jarkoth's mouth hung open. His beast and the pride of his empire lay motionless in the sand. Reynolds looked down. Mr. Whiskers had already sat back down, licking his paw again. His eyes no longer glowed. Reynolds smiled faintly. "You done?" The cat meowed softly. Jarkoth's voice cracked. What kind of creature is that?" Reynolds gave him a look that was almost kind. "Just a cat," he said. "But you should know, Earth doesn't bow easily." The warlord stood frozen, rage and fear mixing behind his molten eyes. For the first time in his life, Jarkoth the Conqueror didn't know what to say, and in that silence, the whole world realized something new. Earth wasn't just fighting back. It was watching, and something ancient was watching with it. The battlefield was silent. A thin layer of dust floated in the air, glowing softly in the sunlight. The alien war beast Krathor lay motionless. Its metal skin cracked, its red eyes dimmed to ash. The crowd that had gathered miles away stood frozen, unsure if they should cheer or run. Captain John Reynolds stood quietly beside his cat. Mr. Whiskers, his boots half buried in the sand. The cat sat in perfect calm, his tail flicking slowly. To him, it was as if nothing special had happened. Jarkoth the Conqueror stared across the field, disbelief written across his monstrous face. His armor's glow flickered weakly, reacting to the strange energy still hanging in the air. His voice finally broke the silence. "You cheated?" Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "Cheated? You brought a Star Eater to a duel." Jarkoth's claws clenched. "No creature, no matter how small, could stop Krathor." "What is that thing?" Reynolds looked down. "That thing," he said softly, "is my cat." Mr. Whiskers yawned, unimpressed. For a few long seconds, neither man nor alien spoke. The world waited. Every news channel on Earth streamed the standoff live. Billions of people leaned close to their screens, hearts pounding. Then suddenly, the beast's body moved. A sharp gasp spread through the human crowd. Soldiers raised their rifles. Jarkoth grinned, his fangs shining. "Ah, it still breathes." The ground shook as Krathor's massive claw twitched. One red eye flickered faintly back to life. Sparks danced across its metal spine. Reynolds didn't flinch. Mr. Whiskers didn't even look. The beast began to rise. Its roar, though weaker, tore through the desert once more. The sound hit like a wave of thunder. Jarkoth spread his arms wide. "See? You cannot kill what was born in the heart of a dying sun." The human soldiers panicked, shouting orders. Drones rose into the air. Missiles locked on the creature's chest, but before anyone could fire, Reynolds raised a hand. "Stand down," he said. The general's voice came through his earpiece. "Captain, what are you doing? That thing is still active." Reynolds didn't answer. His eyes were on the cat. Mr. Whiskers had stopped licking his paw. His ears were upright now. His golden eyes were locked on the monster. The air grew heavy again. Static energy hummed around them, faint but rising. The sand began to swirl in tiny spirals at the cat's feet. Krathor roared once more and lunged forward. It never made it halfway. Without a sound, its entire body froze midair again. Its mouth was open wide, flames glowing in its throat. Its claws were inches away from striking. But it could not move. Time seemed to break around it. Jarkoth's grin vanished. He took a step back, his voice trembling for the first time. This is no human power," Reynolds spoke softly. "I told you. He doesn't like being stared at." Then very slowly Mr. Whiskers blinked. The world around them blinked too. Every camera on Earth flickered. The alien ship's lights dimmed. Power grids across the desert went out for exactly 1 second. Just one, before flickering back on. And when the lights returned, Krathor was gone, not destroyed. Not broken, simply gone. Only a dark mark remained on the sand where it had stood. A wave of silence swept across the world. The soldiers lowered their weapons. Scientists froze, whispering to each other, trying to understand what they had just seen. Jarkoth's armor dimmed completely. His voice came out hoarse. Where did it go?" Reynolds gave a small shrug. "Don't know. He probably sent it somewhere quiet." "Somewhere quiet?" "Yeah," Reynolds said. "He hates loud noises." Jarkoth stared, his breathing rough. "No being could teleport my creation. Not across space. Not across time." Reynolds looked him straight in the eyes. Then maybe you should ask yourself what kind of being you're dealing with. The wind picked up, carrying sand across the open field. The sky was clear again, bright and blue, the same color it had been before this nightmare began. Mr. Whiskers sat down beside Reynolds' boot, calm and still. His fur glowed faintly for a moment before returning to normal. From the human command post, voices shouted through the radio. "Captain, the readings are off the scale. We're picking up dimensional spikes." Reynolds ignored it. He looked at the alien warlord, who now seemed smaller, his arrogance drained. Jarkoth whispered, more to himself than anyone else. "What manner of god protects this world?" Reynolds smiled faintly. "Not a god," he said. "Just a cat who doesn't like trouble." Mr. Whiskers meowed softly as if agreeing. The tension broke. Soldiers began to cheer. The humans watching from around the globe erupted in joy. Children shouted in their living rooms. Commentators cried on live TV. But Reynolds didn't celebrate. He looked at the spot where the beast had vanished. His instincts told him something important, something he couldn't explain. Because for one brief second before Krathor disappeared, he had seen a shadow. Not on the sand, not in the air, but behind the cat a massive faint shape, something ancient and endless, eyes like distant stars watching silently through the veil of time. And when Reynolds blinked, it was gone. He crouched down, scratched Mr. Whiskers behind the ear, and said quietly, "You did good, buddy," the cat purred, eyes half closed. Jarkoth still stood frozen, speechless, staring at the empty battlefield. His voice was barely a whisper. "You have no idea what you've awakened, human." Reynolds straightened up. "Maybe," he said. "But maybe it's what your kind needed to see." The alien's armor flickered once more. His ship's engine started to hum. Without another word, he turned and walked back toward the ramp. The crowd held its breath as the warlord vanished into the ship. Reynolds watched him go, the cat still purring at his feet. Above them, the sky shimmered faintly, as if something beyond the stars had just blinked back. The desert night had fallen over Clearwater, but no one slept. Hours after the battle ended, soldiers still filled the area, setting up lights and scanners. Helicopters circled overhead. Scientists ran tests on the scorched sand where the alien beast had stood, but there was nothing left. No body, no metal, no trace of heat or energy, just a strange, quiet hum that made the equipment flicker every few seconds. Captain John Reynolds sat on the hood of a military truck, staring at the horizon. His cat, Mr. Whiskers, rested on his lap, purring softly. The air smelled like dust and static. The stars above looked brighter than usual, too bright, as if the sky itself was watching. A young lieutenant approached nervously. "Sir, command wants you in the tent. They're asking questions about him." Reynolds looked down at the cat. "They want to study him, don't they?" The soldier hesitated. They want to understand what happened, sir. The readings we got during the fight were, well, impossible." Reynolds sighed. "That's what they said the last time, too." The soldier blinked. "Last time?" Reynolds stood, lifting the cat into his arms. "Never mind. Let's go." Inside the command tent, screens showed data. Power spikes, energy maps, strange patterns nobody could explain. A group of scientists argued in low voices. The general turned as Reynolds entered. "Captain," he said sharply, "what exactly happened out there? That creature didn't just die, it vanished. Where did it go?" Reynolds shrugged. "Ask him." He nodded at the cat. Mr. Whiskers was now sitting on the table, licking his paw, completely ignoring everyone. One of the scientists, a woman with round glasses, leaned closer to scan him. Her instruments beeped, then shut off instantly. She frowned. "It's like the field around him rejects our sensors. Whatever energy he gives off, it's beyond the spectrum." The general crossed his arms. "You expect me to believe your cat?" Before he could finish, the lights flickered. Every monitor turned to static. The air grew heavy again like it had before the beast vanished. Outside, soldiers shouted as their radios went dead. Reynolds turned slowly toward the cat. Mr. Whiskers was staring at the tent wall, straight through it, as if he saw something far away. His eyes glowed faint gold. Then came the sound, a deep, low hum that seemed to rise from beneath the earth itself. The scientists backed away. The general reached for his gun. Reynolds said calmly, "Don't, he's not angry, just alert." The tent fabric rippled even though there was no wind. A faint shimmer appeared in the air like heat waves. Then, for a heartbeat, everyone saw it. A giant shadow behind Mr. Whiskers. It was shaped like the cat, but enormous, stretching up to the ceiling, eyes burning like distant stars. And then it was gone. The power returned. The lights stopped flickering. Everything was normal again, except no one was breathing. The general lowered his gun slowly. What in God's name was that? Reynolds looked down at his cat. That's what I've been trying to figure out for 10 years. Later that night, Reynolds sat alone outside the tent, the desert wind whispering around him. He remembered the first time he'd seen that shadow. Years ago, during a mission in Afghanistan. He had been pinned under rubble. The sky over Arizona was clear that morning, bright blue, wide and calm. It was the kind of sky that made people forget how small they were. But by noon, that sky was gone. A dark shadow spread across the desert town of Clearwater. The air changed. Dry wind turned cold and a low hum began to grow in the distance. Birds flew away. Dogs barked and hid, and then it came. A sound like thunder mixed with metal. The people of Clearwater looked up, and their world changed forever. A massive ship, black and spiked, broke through the clouds. It was not like anything human hands had made. The ship was shaped like a blade, wide and sharp, and as it descended, the ground trembled beneath it. Children screamed. Adults froze. Some took out their phones. Others fell to their knees. Out of that ship came the warlord of the Dravkor Empire, Jarkoth the Conqueror. He was 10 feet tall, covered in silver armor that pulsed with green energy. His eyes burned like molten glass. When he stepped on Earth's soil, the sand turned black under his boots. Behind him stood his guards, tall aliens with smooth, dark skin and glowing marks across their faces. They carried weapons that hummed softly like sleeping beasts waiting to wake. Jarkoth raised his hand. His voice echoed through every speaker, every phone, every device. People of Earth, he said, I am Jarkoth, warlord of the Dravkor. Your planet stands at the edge of my empire. Kneel and you may serve. Resist and your world burns. The people did not answer him, but the world heard him. Within minutes, every news channel on Earth showed his image. Every government went on high alert, and far away, in a quiet military base buried under the Nevada mountains, one man stood watching the broadcast in silence. His name was Captain John Reynolds. He was not a hero from stories. He was not the strongest or the smartest. But he was steady, calm when others panicked. A soldier who had seen more battles than he cared to remember. His brown hair had begun to gray. His face showed years of hard choices. But his eyes, sharp and steady, still had that spark of humor, that strange calm even in chaos. When the general entered the control room, Reynolds didn't salute. He just pointed at the screen. Guess we finally made first contact, he said. The general sighed. Not the kind we wanted. On the screen, Jarkoth's message continued. Your leaders may choose a champion. A single battle. My beast against your warrior. Win and your planet remains free. Lose and Earth belongs to me. Reynolds tilted his head. A duel? Yes, said the general. He calls it an honor duel. Says it's tradition among his kind. Reynolds gave a small smile. An alien duel to decide Earth's future. Sounds simple enough. The general frowned. Simple? We have no idea what kind of creature he'll bring. You've seen the footage. That ship is armed like a planet killer. Reynolds turned away from the screen and looked down at the small cage near his desk. Inside it was a cat, a gray fluffy cat with bright golden eyes. The tag on his collar read, Mr. Whiskers. The cat yawned and blinked lazily at him. Don't look at me like that, Reynolds said. You've been through worse, the general noticed. You brought your cat to base again? Reynolds shrugged. He doesn't like being alone. The general sighed, then lowered his voice. Command wants a plan. They need someone who can face whatever that alien brings. We can't just pick anyone. We need someone calm under pressure. Reynolds turned back to the screen, watching Jarkoth's massive figure. He wants a duel, not a war. If he keeps his word, that's one life against billions. Someone has to step up, the general frowned. You're volunteering? Why not? Reynolds said softly. I've seen enough wars. Maybe it's time I end one before it starts. The general hesitated, then nodded. All right, Captain. You'll represent Earth. Reynolds gave a small smile. "Guess it's just you and me again, buddy," he said to Mr. Whiskers. The cat blinked, unimpressed. Hours later, under the burning light of the alien ship, the battlefield was set. Jarkoth stood tall, his war armor gleaming. Around him, cameras from every nation watched. The world held its breath. A door opened on the human side. Out stepped Captain Reynolds, no armor, no fancy weapons. Just a man in a plain uniform, and a small cat walking beside him. The crowd gasped. The alien warlord laughed in a deep, cruel sound. "This is your champion? This fragile creature and his pet?" Reynolds smiled lightly. "He's not just a pet." Jarkoth's burning eyes narrowed. "Then what is he?" Reynolds looked down at the cat, who now sat calmly between them, tail flicking. "He's Mr. Whiskers, and you'll find out soon enough." The warlord's laughter echoed through the desert, shaking the ground. Then let the duel begin. Lightning flashed above the alien ship as the sky turned red. The wind roared across the sand. Mr. Whiskers yawned. And just like that, the greatest duel in human history began, with a man, a cat, and the fate of the world hanging in the air. The desert air was still, heavy, and waiting. The crowd stood behind their barriers, silent, holding their breath. Soldiers, scientists, and news crews watched from every corner of the world. In the center stood Captain John Reynolds, calm as a stone. His boots sank slightly into the dust. Beside him, Mr. Whiskers, his small gray cat, sat on the sand, tail twitching. Across the field, the alien warlord Jarkoth towered like a dark god. His armor glowed faint green, and his voice echoed through every speaker around the world. "Behold, humans," he said, his deep voice rolling like thunder. "This is my champion, the destroyer of 10 worlds, the eater of suns, the war beast of Dravkor." A massive gate on the alien ship began to open. Metal ground against metal, and a sound like a dying star filled the air. Everyone covered their ears. The noise wasn't just loud, and it shook the bones. Then came the first sign of the creature. A single claw, black, thick, and sharp as a sword, scraped across the ramp. Sparks flew, then another. Then a heavy foot slammed onto the sand, leaving a crater. The ground trembled as a giant beast stepped into the light. It was twice the size of a tank, covered in scales and armor. Its body was a nightmare of flesh and metal. Tubes ran through its skin like glowing veins. Its tail moved like a whip, tipped with spikes that dripped acid. The creature's head rose slowly. 2 burning eyes glowed red, brighter than fire. When it opened its mouth, rows of metal teeth unfolded, steaming with heat. The crowd gasped. The scientists began shouting readings: energy spikes, seismic shifts, radiation levels. Cameras zoomed in, capturing every inch of the monster. Jarkoth smiled proudly. "This is Krathor, born from the core of a dead star, forged to kill armies. Let your champion face him and then witness the end of your world." Reynolds didn't move. His heart was steady, his hands relaxed. He looked down at Mr. Whiskers. The cat was cleaning his paw, completely unfazed. Reynolds bent down slightly. "All right, buddy," he whispered. "It's showtime." Mr. Whiskers blinked slowly, then stood up. He stretched his legs, arched his back, and looked across the battlefield at the monster. The size difference was laughable. A mountain versus a mouse. Jarkoth raised his hand and roared, "Krathor! Feast on their hope." The beast moved. Each step shook the desert floor. Sand flew like waves. Its roar tore through the air, a wall of sound that made soldiers stumble. Cameras shook. Some stopped recording from the pressure. Reynolds didn't flinch. He stood firm, eyes on the creature. Mr. Whiskers didn't run. He didn't even blink. He just sat, tail flicking back and forth. The beast charged. A blur of black and red came forward like a storm. Its jaws opened wide, revealing the molten glow of its throat. Heat rolled off its body. The crowd screamed. Some turned away, and then, just as Krathor was about to strike, everything stopped. The wind froze. The sound died. Even the sand in the air hung still. The beast's claws hovered inches from the cat. Its body shook, muscles straining, but it could not move. Jarkoth's eyes widened. What is this?" Reynolds looked up, calm as ever. "I told you," he said softly. "He's not just a pet." Mr. Whiskers lifted his head. His golden eyes glowed faintly like small suns. Energy shimmered around him, invisible but strong enough to make the air ripple. The ground cracked beneath his tiny paws. A low hum filled the air, deep and strange. Machines in the alien ship began to spark and fail. Screens went black. Radios went silent. Krathor roared again, trying to move, but his body twisted unnaturally, fighting against a force no one could see. The monster stumbled back, smashing the ground with its claws. Each impact sent a shockwave across the sand, but still it couldn't touch the cat. Jarkoth shouted commands in his alien tongue, furious. His guards aimed weapons, but the energy around Mr. Whiskers bent their aim. Bullets curved in the air, missing completely. Reynolds crossed his arms. "You brought your best," he said. "Now meet ours." The cat took one step forward, just one, and the air itself screamed. The beast howled, falling to one knee. Sparks flew from the cracks in its armor. Its red eyes dimmed, flickering. Jarkoth's voice broke through the chaos. "Impossible. Nothing has ever," Reynolds interrupted. "You should have done your research before coming here." Mr. Whiskers lifted his paw, slow, calm, deliberate. The beast roared in pain as a pulse of light shot out. It wasn't bright or loud, but it carried power that made even Jarkoth step back. In one silent moment, the giant Krathor collapsed. The ground shook from the impact. Dust rose like a wave. When it cleared, the battlefield was quiet. After an explosion, his unit was gone. His radio was dead. Then through the smoke, a small gray kitten had walked toward him. Calm, unafraid. He had thought it was a hallucination, but when it sat beside him, the air had changed, and the same hum, the same golden light, and somehow the rubble had lifted off him. He had carried the kitten home. Named him Mr. Whiskers, the cat had never aged. Not once. Reynolds looked down at the small creature now sleeping on his jacket. "Who are you really, huh?" he whispered. Mr. Whiskers opened one eye, glowing faintly, and then closed it again. Back at the alien ship, far beyond the desert, Jarkoth the Conqueror stood before a massive holographic screen. His generals spoke in panic. "Our beast has not returned, my lord." Its signal vanished into the void. "Our systems detected a dimensional breach possibly outside known space." Jarkoth slammed his fist into the console, shattering it. "No creature of flesh or metal can do this. What power hides on that cursed planet?" One of his lieutenants spoke carefully. "Perhaps, my lord. It was not a creature. Perhaps it was a guardian." Jarkoth turned slowly. "A guardian?" "Yes," the alien said. "Old legends speak of beings that sleep on young worlds. Silent protectors that awaken only when danger comes." Jarkoth's burning eyes narrowed. "Then Earth has one. And it is awake." Back in the desert, Reynolds walked toward the ridge where the duel had taken place. The sand was cool under his boots. The night sky stretched endlessly above him. He crouched beside Mr. Whiskers, who sat staring at the stars. "You're not from here, are you?" Reynolds asked softly. The cat didn't answer, and of course not. But his eyes reflected the starlight in a way that didn't seem natural. Reynolds sighed. "Whatever you are, thanks for watching over us." The cat blinked slowly, then looked back at the sky. Far above, a faint light flickered. Not a star, but a ship. Jarkoth's vessel, watching, waiting. Mr. Whiskers' eyes glowed faintly again. The light in the sky vanished. Reynolds smiled. "Guess that answers that." He stood, the cat jumping gracefully onto his shoulder. Together they walked back toward the lights of the camp. Behind them, the sand shifted faintly, as if something unseen followed their steps. The calm was not peace. It was only the quiet before something greater, something no one was ready for. The following morning, the desert felt strangely calm. Too calm. The air was cool, the sky a clear blue, and yet everyone in the camp felt uneasy. Soldiers spoke in whispers. Scientists moved quietly. Even the hum of the alien wreckage had faded into silence. Only one man seemed at peace, Captain John Reynolds. He sat outside his tent sipping cold coffee, while his cat, Mr. Whiskers, napped on his lap. The general walked over, his boots crunching on the sand. "You do realize the world is waiting for answers, right?" Reynolds nodded slowly. "The world always wants answers, but sometimes it shouldn't get them." The general sighed. "John Command wants you in the hangar. We've recovered something from the site. Something strange." Reynolds looked down at the cat. "You coming, buddy?" Mr. Whiskers stretched lazily. jumped off Reynolds's lap and trotted beside him. The hangar was filled with noise, machinery, chatter, beeping monitors. In the center of the room sat a large metal sphere, half buried in the sand they had dug up. Its surface was covered in alien runes that glowed faint green. The scientists gathered around it nervously. One of them looked up as Reynolds entered. "Captain, this was buried where the beast fell. We think it's a core of some kind, but it's still active." Reynolds studied it carefully. Active? The sphere gave off a faint hum, rhythmic, almost alive. Mr. Whiskers jumped onto a nearby table and stared at it. His fur rose slightly. The hum grew louder. The lights in the hangar flickered. Then a crack formed along the surface of the sphere. The scientists panicked, stepping back. "Get away from it," someone shouted. Reynolds didn't move. Neither did Mr. Whiskers. The sphere opened like a flower, revealing a floating hologram of alien text and images. A deep, echoing voice filled the room. The voice of Zarkoth. "To the human who defeated my beast, you have earned my curiosity. The creature beside you is not of your kind. It belongs to something older, something my empire once feared." The hologram shifted. Now it showed a glowing shape. A feline outline surrounded by galaxies. We called them the Watchers of the Quiet Realms, beings that move between time and matter. When a young world faces destruction, a Watcher is sent to protect it, but they do not speak. They only act. Gasps spread through the room. "If this is true, human, then your world is under the gaze of something far beyond you. Cherish that, or fear it." The hologram flickered and died. The sphere went dark. Silence filled the hangar. One of the scientists turned slowly to Reynolds. Did that thing just say your cat is some kind of cosmic guardian?" Reynolds looked down at Mr. Whiskers, who was calmly licking his paw. "Guess that explains why he never uses the litter box," he said dryly. But behind the humor, his mind raced. He remembered every strange thing over the years. How bullets once curved away during an ambush. How the cat's eyes glowed whenever thunder rolled. How no vet could ever find a heartbeat. He had joked for years that Mr. Whiskers wasn't normal, but now he wasn't sure if the cat was even alive in the human sense. The general broke the silence. "If this is true, Captain, then that creature is the most powerful thing on Earth. What if it turns against us?" Reynolds frowned. "It won't. How can you be sure?" "Because it's been here all this time," Reynolds said. "And we're still alive." That night, Reynolds sat alone again, the desert stretching wide around him. Mr. Whiskers sat nearby, staring up at the stars. The wind whispered softly across the sand. Reynolds spoke quietly. "So, you're a watcher? A guardian from some other world? You could have left any time, huh?" The cat turned his golden eyes toward him. For a moment, Reynolds thought he saw something behind those eyes. A vastness, like an ocean that stretched beyond stars. Then a voice, not out loud, but inside his mind. Calm, deep, ancient. "Not all who guard speak. Not all who speak guard. You fight for your kind. I watch for all kinds." Reynolds froze, his breath catching. "That was you?" The cat blinked slowly. "Long ago, when your world was young, we watched from the edges. We do not rule. We remember. We keep balance." Reynolds' throat went dry. "Why me? Why Earth?" "Because this world has fire in its heart. You build, destroy, rebuild again. You are not perfect, but you are alive." The voice faded, leaving only the sound of the wind. Reynolds stared at the cat for a long time. "You know," he said softly. "You could have just said thanks for the food." Mr. Whiskers tilted his head, and for a split second Reynolds could have sworn the cat smiled. Far beyond the stars, in the dark reaches of space, Zarkoth stood before a council of alien lords. They spoke in hushed tones. "The human world is guarded by one of the old ones. Then we must never return." Zarkoth slammed his fist against the table. "No, we will return. But next time we will come prepared." The others looked at him in fear. He stared into the void beyond the window, whispering, "No creature, no matter how ancient, can stop the Dravkor forever." But deep inside, even Zarkoth knew the truth. What he had seen in that cat's eyes was not just power. It was infinity staring back. Back on Earth, Reynolds watched the sunrise. Mr. Whiskers sat beside him, tail flicking. The light spread across the desert, turning the sand gold. Reynolds smiled. "Looks like another quiet day, huh?" The cat purred softly, his eyes glowing faintly once more. High above them, the stars blinked, one after another, as if the universe itself was listening. And somewhere in the silence between worlds, something old and unseen purred back. A week passed since the battle in the desert. The world had returned to its routines, or at least tried to. News channels ran endless debates. Scientists argued about energy readings, and across every country people whispered the same question. What was that cat? Governments tried to keep things secret, but the footage had already spread. Billions had seen it. The moment a small gray cat faced a monster and won, some called it fake. Others called it divine. But Captain John Reynolds knew the truth. He knew because every night, he saw those golden eyes glow in the dark. Soft, watchful, patient Mr. Whiskers had gone back to acting like a normal cat. He slept on warm laptops, knocked over coffee mugs, and stared at walls for no reason at all. But Reynolds had learned something. When a cat stares at nothing, maybe it's staring at something we can't see, and maybe, just maybe, that something is staring back. The peace didn't last. At 2:47 a.m., the base alarms went off. Sirens wailed across the desert. Soldiers ran from their tents, weapons in hand. Reynolds woke instantly. Mr. Whiskers was already sitting upright, fur standing on end. His golden eyes burned bright in the darkness. The general burst into Reynolds's tent. "They're back," he shouted. "The Dravkor ships, hundreds of them. They're in orbit." Reynolds stood fast. "I thought Jarkoth learned his lesson." "He did," the general said grimly. "But he brought help." On the monitors, the sky above Earth filled with massive alien vessels, black like knives stretching across the horizon. Their lights glowed blood red. A transmission came through. Jarkoth's face appeared on every screen. "Human," he thundered. "Your guardian humbled me once, but I have returned with the power of the High Lords. Let your beast face us again, or your world burns." Reynolds stared at the screen. "You really don't learn, do you?" "Learn?" Jarkoth laughed. "I evolve." Behind him, a swirling storm of red energy gathered. The alien fleet aimed massive cannons toward Earth. Mr. Whiskers stood on the desk now, tail flicking. His fur shimmered faintly like mist under moonlight. Reynolds sighed. "Guess nap time's over, huh, buddy?" The cat meowed once, soft but certain. Minutes later, they stood outside in the desert again under a burning red sky. The ships above glowed brighter, forming a circle around the planet. Jarkoth's voice echoed across the atmosphere. "Show me your champion, human." Reynolds looked down at Mr. Whiskers. The cat stepped forward into the sand. The wind whipped around him, howling like the cry of an ancient storm. His eyes began to glow. Not gold this time, but white, pure, and blinding. The stars themselves seemed to tremble. Every screen, every camera, every sensor on Earth went blank. The world went silent. Jarkoth sneered. "Your trick will not save you again." Then the air ripped open. Behind Mr. Whiskers appeared a shape, huge, endless, shifting between light and shadow. It was the same silhouette Reynolds had glimpsed before, now fully awake. It was not a cat anymore. It was a cosmic being, a being made of starlight and memory. Its eyes shone brighter than suns. Jarkoth's ships began to shake. "Fire!" he screamed. Beams of red energy shot down from orbit, burning through the sky, but every single one stopped mid-air, frozen in place like insects in amber. The Watcher blinked once. The beams bent upward and turned, striking the alien fleet itself. Dozens of ships exploded in silence, turning into dust that faded into the void. Jarkoth screamed, "This is impossible. No creature can." The Watcher's voice filled his mind. Calm, deep, endless. Power without wisdom invites silence. Jarkoth gasped, falling to his knees. "What are you?" "A reminder," the voice said. "That creation remembers its guardians." The fleet's engines failed. The sky cleared. One by one, the ships winked out of existence, erased from time itself, and then everything stopped. The light faded. The air calmed. The stars returned. In the middle of the desert stood only Reynolds and his cat. Small, quiet, ordinary once more. Mr. Whiskers shook his fur, yawned, and walked back to Reynolds' boots. Reynolds stared at him, half in awe, half in disbelief. "You could have done that from the start, couldn't you?" The cat blinked. Reynolds chuckled softly. "Yeah, thought so." By morning, the alien threat was gone. Every ship had vanished. The world had seen the sky blaze white, and then peace returned just as quickly as it had left. The news called it the Day of Light. Governments built monuments. Scientists called it an anomaly. But the people who'd watched from Clearwater knew the truth. They'd seen the shape in the clouds, the eyes that burned through time, and somewhere in the background, on every photo there was a small gray cat. Later that evening, Reynolds sat on the edge of the base roof watching the sunset. Mr. Whiskers lay next to him, purring quietly. "You know," Reynolds said, "you could have ruled the universe if you wanted." The cat's tail swayed lazily. Reynolds smiled. "But you didn't. Guess that's what makes you better than the rest of us." The cat looked up at him, and for a moment, those golden eyes seemed to hold an entire galaxy. "Power means nothing," the voice whispered softly in Reynolds' mind, "if it forgets mercy." The words faded like wind through the dunes. Reynolds nodded slowly. "Yeah," he said. "That's a good lesson." He picked up the cat, holding him close as the sky turned gold. The Warlord was gone. The danger had passed. Humanity was safe, not because it was strong, but because something stronger had chosen to protect it. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, a faint shimmer crossed the sky, like a giant cat stretching across the stars. Reynolds smiled to himself. "Good night, Mr. Whiskers." The cat purred softly, eyes half closed as the universe itself seemed to hum in peace. Sometimes the mightiest defender of mankind doesn't roar, he just purrs.